Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Njist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Njist.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and I have a guest who graciously came back because we had technical difficulties. We had a great conversation, but I asked her to come back, and she's back. So you know what I like to do, Alisa. Have you introduce yourself on who you are, what it is you do, and then we are going to rock and roll and have some fun again.
Yes. Thank you so much for asking me to come back. It's a pleasure and an honor, and it's been a great journey before this. So I'm very thrilled to be here again. My name is Alisa. I work as a licensed psychotherapist. I specialize in trauma, and I'm very passionate about this work because I love being there for people, especially at their worst, and helping them through their journey as well. So this is something that, again, that's my mission. And so, yes, I'm here.
Well, yeah. Well, we know there's more to this, so we're going to get into that, everybody, because she has a great story. But you know what I like to do is go back and talk about some of the, you came here to the United States very young and you started your life here, but talk about some of the challenges you had back in Russia and just like the challenges you went through to get to where you are today with this beautiful smile that's smiling back at me, right? I'm a lucky man that she came back because it's been a crazy week for me to do this, and it's only Wednesday. But so I'm gonna let you go, Alisa. Tell them some of those challenges and why you got into what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. So, in my own story, there was a history of trauma as well. It's not a part of my story anymore, only in the more of an empowering way. I came from Russia. I was 18, fresh off the boat. I didn't have a family with me, and I'm still trying to make complete sense about what made me to transition from one continent to another at such a young age. Back in the day, I didn't think I was young, I guess. Maybe we all think that way in a way. But I've noticed that certain life experiences led me to, again, certain traumas in my own life and questioning why this is all happening to me and trying to seek solutions. However, it didn't lead me initially to a better place because, again, I really didn't have any support system here when I came to the US. So I turned to, other ways that were coping skills, but unhealthy ones. So alcohol, again, I'm Russian. I have more more alcohol in my blood than my blood itself, I feel like. So that was a part of my journey, which is now, again, I'm sober from that fully, and I'm very grateful for that. But it's been, of course, a journey with that transition. And again, just seeking healing options for myself, seeking ways to make sense of my life experiences and not getting the best help from what I had available at the moment. I went and I started getting my education in mental health, not knowing where that's going to lead me to. And eventually it brought me to be a trauma specialist after healing myself and also learning about what trauma is. How do we experience trauma? What does it mean? What trauma is in general? Because I feel like we're very unaware or don't have a lot of or definition of that or a concept that's comprehensive that bring all of the parts of trauma and how it impacts us as humans. So yeah.
But trauma, I mean, some people who have been through trauma minimize their trauma, right? Because they hear about someone who went to war, right? And saw battle and, fought. They think that's trauma. But you and I know that trauma, it comes in all kinds of forms, right? A death of a loved one, or, being like attacked by a dog or something. And you know what I mean? Like, people don't understand there's those events that's why we do certain things in our lives, because at a certain point, something happened to us, right? Whether we have the walls come up and we're very, not very open to telling other people how we feel or whatever, or the more serious traumas in the world, right? Like physical, sexual, mental abuse, emotional abuse. And what I have found, right? And I'm so glad you're here, right? People like yourself who do what you do and specialize in the work that you do, right, have their stories. And I love what you said, right? It's not who you are. You don't define yourself by your trauma, but it's part of your journey that brought you to where you are today. And now, and it's almost like being that alcoholic or addict, right? More people who are getting sober are going to trust someone who's been there and done that rather than someone just coming out of school saying, oh, I studied it at this university, right? They're like,
Yeah.
well, so that doesn't matter to me. So, I'm come from the University of Hard Knocks. I want to know if somebody else has too, right? So you've done both. I mean, you've gone through your journey. I mean, to be a young woman that comes over to a whole different country by herself. Well, at 18, you and I know at 18, I thought I was invincible. Like nothing gonna hurt me. Like you can't tell me what to do. Mom and dad doesn't know. They don't know what they're talking about. And, but so this, I mean, like getting into it, but like, how did you overcome those traumas? And what I want to get at is what I want the audience to understand is the process, right? Because they hear me a lot, and a lot of my guests always say, trust the process, right? You might not know what the end result's going to be, but if you just focus on the daily tasks or the things you have to do to learn new coping mechanism or coping skills, or, to change those behaviors, you'll be better for it in the end, right? But so sometimes I know me, I get wrapped up in like, I want to know what the end's going to be like. I want to skip all the hard stuff and just, Alisa, just fix me so I don't have to go through that stuff, right? I mean, I'm sure you've run across that in your practice where people are like, you just fix me but I don't want to do any of that hard stuff. And you're like, well, that doesn't work that way, right? What does that look like?
Well, there's a lot of components to that. So number one, which you mentioned as well, about the trauma is often perceived as something so major in our lives. However, now we're becoming more aware in general population, in a clinical circle as well, what trauma is. And it's really anything that prevents you from functioning in the world to 100%. So I feel like the process starts with self-awareness and looking at, okay, is my life the way I want it to be? Am I the best version of myself, or something in my life that I don't like? It may stem from trauma, it may not. It depends on the circumstances and everyone else's experience. But I feel like first becoming self-aware and having an open mind to even notice things that may be wrong. Because I know a lot of people prefer to go about their lives and being, let's say, example, right, rude to other people. And it's not even because they don't have the right values. Sometimes we just are in a state of such sympathetic dominance where we're in that survival mode, but we don't even realize that we're there. And so I feel like having an open mind first and looking objectively, not subjectively, at our life. And one of the things that helped me to kind of open up my perspective, because I was stuck in a kind of in a victim state in a while. And I feel like that's also part of the process. I don't think there's anything wrong in being there, because sometimes we need to hit that rock bottom to really see what we are and what experiences brought us there. Because my own thing, my traumas were starting even from Russia, and I didn't even know that I was trauma. And that was the hopelessness that I lived with, because I was a Soviet baby. I was born in the Soviet Union, which is right now crazy to think about. But again, I caught it only for a few years of my life, but it was it was a poor environment. Again, it's not like we were lacking something. I didn't have a dad. My mom had to fight for a lot of things in there. So naturally, certain things develop in our childhood, and that's how core beliefs are formed. And it's not just mental process, it's also physiological change that happens, which we can get into a little later. But I feel like first, again, that begins to kind of affect how we view life after all. And it may not be anything major. Again, neglect or not meeting our needs as children can also lead to a lot of dysfunction, because if we think about it, we're born, right? Our parents are their ultimate teacher. Even more so, they're gods for us. They're setting the standards for life. They're explaining to us what the world is. So everything they say, we take and we run with that. We don't question it. We're kids. We're sucking everything like a sponge. And so, but when we do that, if I'm taught that life is unsafe, that nobody can be trusted, that loved ones can hurt you, or maybe they don't even care about you, and we have those needs of self-love, right? We all talk about self-love. And that starts early in childhood. How can we know how to love ourselves if we never experienced that? And I knew people when I worked in rehab, and I've had a client who was 19 years old. He's like, how does it feel to be loved? He's like, I never had that experience. And it was mind blowing to me. It's not even a trauma of something terrible, but it's even worse than that, because if you've never experienced love, that's a terrible state of being, right? And so from that point on, and we start having this lens that we look at the world with, and then everything goes within that lens of I'm unsafe, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, I'm abandoned, I'm alone, I'm powerless, I'm hopeless. There can be a lot of different core beliefs, but they're not even mental. We don't even know we're functioning from that, because this is already a map of life that we have. And it's built, and we just go from that exploring world in a very limiting way. So again, the first step is self-awareness, and that's where it all starts.
Right. And I think that's very key and vital that you talk about that, right? Because in my studies, like in human psychology and stuff, like we get passed to us things from generations before us. We don't even know we have, right? But until it starts showing up. And, and like what Alisa is saying about trauma, like I'm going to just, because my mom, God rest her soul and whatever, but my dad generation passed on some things, right? Where they were whatever. But here's my trauma, right? That's why math freaks me out. I hate math. I'm not good at it, but this is where I've realized it doesn't have to define me. And I've actually, when I faced it, got better. But like you said, it was a trauma for me. I was working with my uncle, and I used a calculator to make sure I gave the customer the correct change.
Mm-hmm.
Man, and right in front of everybody, he shamed me. Like, oh my God, you need to use a calc. And then he tells my mom, and I'm thinking my mom's gonna have my back. Guess what? She did the same thing. So then from that was like that day forward, math and I were enemies. Like, in my young head, it was, if I don't know math, it's not good for me. So I'm afraid of it, and I'm just gonna push it away and not even. Right. And then because I would hear from my family members on my dad's side, oh, your dad was really smart. He went to the library and taught himself. And I'm like, well, that's not me. That gene kind of flew by me and my brother's head. Right. Right. I can laugh about it now, but when someone brought that up to me when I was working on myself, that was a big issue for me, and why I actually had mistrust of people, because the way they did it to me, the way they confronted me on it, instead of like taking me inside and say, well, you really have a hard time with math here, I'm going to teach you some, you know what I mean? Like, instead they shame me in front of the customer, and the other one shame me in front of the family when I was at home. So I'm like, but I hope that makes sense, audience. This is what you're getting at, because it doesn't matter it doesn't have to be a large trauma, but it's like we lose that childlike curiosity as we get older, because of what Alisa says, like the things that we conditioned with growing up that sometimes we don't even remember.
Yeah.
Right? And to have that self-awareness, like now, funny story is, like, I was going to go look into grad school, and since I had already done statistics, right, I was like, I'm looking for schools that weren't going to make me do it again, right? So the guy goes, yes, you got to take statistics again. I said, not going to work for me. I got to go. Click. But now I think I have much more open mind, right? Because there's tutors, there's ways I can learn. But yeah, like I can still feel it like it was someone who punched me in the face, like, and right? Because I love that saying, we all have a plan until, like Mike Tyson, until we get punched in the face. And then it just kind of like, and I'm sure you've had those moments in your life, right, Alisa, where you think things are going better, and then something else comes up and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, where'd that come from? Right.
Yeah, well, ultimately, this is life itself, and it's always going to be coming up. But unfortunately, if we allow those experiences to condition us and to take us down so we can't get up, right, that's going to be a debilitating journey, because then we're focusing only on when is the next misfortune is going to come to me. And I feel like trying to shift that thinking. And when you spoke about the curiosity too, and why we don't remember certain things, and one of the modalities that I use a lot with people, and I love it, it's called EMDR. It's eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and it helps to break down neural connections that are formed within ourselves. And I'll explain that. So there's a Dan Siegel doctor who talks about having top brain and a bottom brain. Top brain meaning explicit memories, just like you can look back and you laugh at what happened now, right? Because you can say it's an explicit memory, or saying, okay, this happened then, this happened at this age, and that's what they did, that's what I did. But then we have implicit memories, which is a neural connections that's been firing and wiring together every time we experience something. Again, if we're scared, that's not just mental, we experience it with the body. If it's positive, the same thing. And so when we experience something so severe as children, like your example, right? Probably when your uncle is doing that, this is someone you're looking up to. You're working there, you have this great rapport, you trust this person, and suddenly this person is betraying you by making you feel shame, which is one of the worst emotions to go through. So it's devastation internally. Your experiences, you're knocked out with that. And a lot of things that can be built internally is, I'm inadequate, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, right? And those are terrible things and beliefs about ourselves that we can have as children. So of course, from this point on, if the person who's supposed to love me is doing that, then what's going to be the person who doesn't even know me at all? Am I even worth to be loved? Am I worth to be, accepted by others? And so I feel like recognizing how those experiences can be kind of repressed in ourselves when we have that reaction from, again, any type of unpleasant situation, and then moving forward and saying, okay, where did I learn? Why I'm not taking the steps forward? And like you said, right, I'm not going to go for statistics now, no, right? But then you start questioning what's happening, and maybe I should, and maybe there are ways to do it. Then we turn on our rational mind and we try to navigate it with, prefrontal cortex that makes decisions for ourselves. And so then we may find a solution, but it doesn't mean that it's easy to navigate internally still, because there can be a lot of different sensations and emotions, even through the simple thing of calling to find out about that gratitude decree. So I feel like when we begin to realize or pay attention to, when do I experience limitations in my life? And I feel like those limitations can give us a little better view on what is my core belief is about this. And again, first starting to question, what am I thinking about? Why is this giving me this emotional reaction? And what do I think about it? What meaning does it give me right now? And then starting to pay more attention to those things, to begin to be more self-aware and see where the problem can lie.
Right. I'm glad you brought up EMDR, because we know, right, science has proved that traumatic events do get stored in the body from, right? Mm-hmm. That's why ex-soldiers who get PTSD have night terrors, right? Because they remember it.
Yeah.
And or they can't sleep because, the memory comes back, and it just, I have someone very close that had, like, sleep is not their good time. It's tough for them, because of trauma they have gone through. And I know it affects everybody different. I know when I'm stressed or something traumatic happens, my lower back has always been like when I'm very stressed, my lower back hurts, right? So I know that I'm stressing, or I'm processing my stress and storing it in my lower back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know for other people it's different, like it's in their chest or in their, their shoulders, or, I've, in working with therapists that I've seen in addiction that are telling me, like, this is where, and it's different for everybody, but I think it's such a wonderful modality that helps someone finally overcome their PTSD or trauma, because it gives them a way to get that out of the body, correct? If I'm correct.
Absolutely.
So that they can connect better with their body, their mind, right? Because the mind is, like you said, a very powerful thing, and you talked about it, right? It's that, what do you call the ancient, the reptilian part of our brain, the fight or flight, right? We're either in flight constantly or we're in flight, right? And that's where, like, people who have high anxiety are usually right in the flight, or, in fear all the time. And so talk about that a little bit to help maybe the audience who are going through some stressful things, to give them an idea, like, ooh, hey, I might have to call Alisa or get a hold of her, because I know what's going on now. She just kind of late, because this is very valuable stuff, everybody. And I hope you're paying attention, because I mean, last time I spoke with Alisa, I learned so much, and here she is again. So I want you all to understand there is help, right? If you're going through something like this, and she's going to tell you, like, what to look for, what can be done. And, and also remember, it's not a one time and you're done. It's a process we all have to go through to cure I like to say, or to get better from a trauma.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I feel like it's important to mention is so we have the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is when we get into that fight or flight mode. It's when our amygdala is hyperactive, when we get anxious, and we're in a state where we're hyper vigilant and hyper focused on the things that we perceive as threats. Because often, if we look at cause and effect, and let's say I will say, well, what is the effect that you're experiencing? Well, anxiety, stress, I have flare ups in my body, I have heart palpitation, I have, this tension. And what is the cause of it? When you say, well, it's my relationship with my husband, it's my job, it's this. Yes, but it's not the cause. Because naturally, if we look at those things specifically, right, and those perceived causes, they're not serving as stressful things for a lot of people. So it's previous painful learning that created this connection between this trigger and the effect of it. So for instance, if I love flowers and we look at this big kind of theme of flowers and everything is great, but then one day I sniff one, I get a severe reaction, I'm taken to the hospital. So then anytime I see flowers, I automatically, my body as a defense mechanism, and that's the reptilian brain in a way, it's going to lead me to be hyper alert and trying to escape that, right? Because it's fight or flight, without me even processing whether that's the flower that almost killed me or there's another flower. The categories will collapse when we are in this, we call it sympathetic dominance. So the moment we're there, and that's the moments where, and maybe somebody will be able to kind of identify it from this experience, from this example, is when you, let's say, betray your own values, when you act out from not having integrity, when you swore to God that you will never say that again to someone you love, right? It's not because you're wrong. Actually, in this sympathetic dominance, this is the correct behavior. This is expected, right? Because oftentimes I feel like when people come in addiction, we've seen a lot of those moments when people act out, they lose their temper, and then we sit them and we try to blame them for their behaviors. They literally cannot do any better right now, right? So this is a given at the moment. I feel like learning or taking away the stigma regarding those behaviors, especially when people are struggling, it's going to be a useful tip for a lot of people, right? But then again, that becomes a self-awareness. Okay, what am I doing with that then? Am I liking how I'm acting? Is this how I want to be? And then we begin to learn more about when we're going into the stressful state, the sympathetic dominance, and when we're not able to control our behaviors because we're just trying to survive. And that's the state oftentimes we go to when we perceive a trigger, which is not even going mentally for us, because between the top brain, simplistically, right, our prefrontal cortex and the neural connection, our physiology, there is no connection between the two. So when we're triggered, it's the bodily response that creates this kind of tension and this reaction to what we're experiencing. And stress is nothing more than our body's tension as well. That's been, again, conditioned from before, from the painful experience in the past, right? So one of the things that we practice just to start in general is how to become more self-aware and self-regulating. And one of the things we can talk about is interoception, and going inside your body immediately if you are getting already certain sensations that are not good. If you feel like you're getting agitated or you're having this little, and again, that's also self-awareness, right? How am I feeling right now? Checking in with yourself before you escalate to a point where there's no return. And then learning to go inside of your body and relax all of your muscles. It's not an easy task for a lot of people because we're so far away from our bodies oftentimes, and we spiral into this anxiety, infusing kind of thoughts and themes and future. And I feel like coming in is also taking time to be present with your body. And again, we're not even going for meditation or mindfulness yet. It's simply going in and relaxing body muscles. And the good thing is that we can have anxiety or PTSD symptoms in relaxed physiology. If we learn this little trick, we may avoid experiencing stress all in the future as well. But again, it takes time to kind of master that skill.
Right. So you talk about the individual who's going through that, like some of the questions they can ask themselves. But here I want to ask you, like, for a loved one or someone, a friend who sees someone going into that fight or flight, right? Because you and I know, at least, like, if you're having a very anxious moment and I go, Lisa, calm down, you're going to be like, I'm going to punch you in the face right now, because I'm kidding everybody, but you know what I mean? Like, anybody who's been in that state and they get told to calm down, it makes it worse. Like, so can you give some tips for someone who might be listening who has a loved one that goes through and who's like, I don't know what to do because I don't want to say the wrong thing, right? Because also I've been guilty of this when someone is going through that, where I freeze, right? And they're looking at me like, help me, but I don't want to say anything that might even trigger it more, like you said. But as I've learned, because I've been in the field, right, things to say and things not to say, but when it's someone close to you, even if you have experience, sometimes you freeze because you don't want to make it worse, right? Because right, especially, and that's my famous, because I've seen it happen so many times, just calm down, right? And I'm like, people tell me calm down. Now it's gone from 50 to 100, and I'm not going to calm down because you just told me that. It's like the brain automatically goes, no, I don't want to do that.
Of course.
You made me mad. But what is your advice for that? Because I think we talk about the individual, like you say, being self-aware, figuring out how to calm the body, but how can someone help in that situation when they're feeling helpless, and they're seeing their loved one have a panic attack or something,
Right. Well, panic attack will be a little different from, I feel like, from the moment when the person is really agitated and angry. It depends on what kind of response do we have to the trigger. But I feel like one of the useful things is to consider is whatever you're about to say, think about this, that person right now is in the presence of a lion who is about to eat them. Would you say someone who is about to be eaten that, come down, you're going to be fine? Would you say that if there's a lion standing right next to that person? So that's what they're dealing with in the moment. So I feel like my first response would be is number one, trying to understand what's happening. Maybe again, not really invading their space, because oftentimes we can self-regulate if we don't have that trigger present. If the lion goes away, we may take a little bit of time. It takes about 15, 20 minutes for cortisol and adrenaline to flush through the system in good times, right? Sometimes if we continue to think about that, we may continue to produce that because our mind is, again, can create those scenarios that ain't there, but they're keeping us kind of going. But I feel like giving space, if you know the person, depends on the person as well, right? And what they're dealing with at the moment and which way they have either fight, flight, freeze, right? There can be different kind of reactions. So I feel like giving the space and also validating their feelings at first, because again, sometimes it can be useful to say, well, at least if I don't understand what you're dealing with, tell me, right? Becoming more curious and open to experience and open to what they're about to say, and having an open mind for your loved one too, trying to understand that, because the fact that we think that they're having something else, we don't know that at all. And in fact, nobody will ever know you for 100%, nobody. And when people say, oh, I completely understand you, no, you can never do that. Nobody will ever be able to understand another person 100%. But what we can do is keeping an open mind and getting curious about what's happening so that we get to be closer to understanding them. And I feel like that's one of the things. One quick note, of course, the person who may be having this kind of reaction, right? It may be a trauma related, it can be something else, but as well for the loved ones who are trying to calm them down, you also do not want to be always tolerating, abuse. And sometimes those people who can be in that reaction can be also not taking care of themselves, right? So it's their responsibility to do the work for that while you can be providing the space. But I also know some people, they want to be providing the space and validating feelings and then, giving them whatever they may need. And then that person does not even change. So again, sometimes it's useful to be in their presence and to be supporting them. But sometimes the most loving thing to do for some of us who are struggling with something similar is to maybe even set those boundaries if that good kind of relationship is not reciprocated from another party. So I feel like it can be tricky, but I would start with, again, validating the feelings, providing the space where they can, non-judgmental space, where they can actually talk and try to explain of what happened. Because if you create that safe space and non-judgmental space, they're easier to put down their defenses and listen and give you more information and actually come down from that, because there's someone who is supporting them rather than judging them.
Right.
And so that would be the beginning, I would say.
Right. And it, it's like in the field, like you've worked in rehab, it takes like a village to work with a client, like raising a child, right? Like it takes everybody, to do their part to help the client understand that, yes, they can live a sober life, right? But they have some work to do. But also on the other end, like I think we talked about it before, like I've had parents or loved ones drop off a client and go, we're going on vacation, fix them, we'll be back in 90 days. And you're like, oh, no, that doesn't work that way. Like if you really want this to stick, you're going to have to do your part. And you said it, though. We talked about boundaries, right? Like now you have to hold certain boundaries, right? Don't always save them when they're going through something. But at the same time, you have to be supportive and let them know,
Yeah.
Like I've told my children, right? They're chip off the old block. I said, look, I support your recovery 100%, but if you're going to, do whatever you're going to do, that's not the right thing, or treat me disrespectfully, then I'm not going to be a part of it. And that was hard, because my background when I went through getting sober and stuff, like, the things I did to my mom and to my children, before you know what I mean? It's like, then I would let the guilt and the shame kick in. So then every time I would fold, like, okay, I'll do whatever you want, and I know that's not healthy, right? But in anybody trying to heal from whatever, there has to be, right, that fine line of support, but not enabling, right? But support, but not being a total jerk, right? Because then you're just going to create more. And that's why I think all of us, and this is why I'm so glad Alisa's here, because I think it all begins with us as individuals having that self-awareness of how, one, I treat myself, two, right, how am I going to treat Alisa if we were, together out having fun or something, you know what I mean? Or anybody,
Yeah.
right? Being that aware so that I'm not, I don't know, just being the better, like you said, being a better human being so that I can, have good relationships, whether it's with my grandchildren, my children, friends, colleagues, or right. I don't want to be that one, right? Yeah. Like Max is a jerk. You don't want to hang out with that guy. Yeah. I used to be that guy, but and it's still a learning process, right? It doesn't,
Oh,
right? After like even going through therapy with you, right? Like I'm sure you tell your clients, your patients that this is a life, you got to keep working at this. So it's not, 90 days, 6 months, a year, you're done, you're all cured, right? Because,
no.
it's funny that you talk about those triggers and stuff too, because even almost 22 years later, being sober, like a certain song can come on and I get that feeling of right where I was when that song first came out, when I was using like that. There used to be a time where I would feel like I was high. Isn't that weird? Because that song brought those memories back, and I'm like, oh my God, do I got to call my sponsor and tell him I relapse? He's going to laugh. He's going to know, dude, you just listened to a song. It's called euphoric recall or something like that. But you know what I mean? Like, but I used to get all weirdo about that. Like, oh, did I relapse? Oh, or I have a bad dream and go, did I relapse? No, you just had a dream. And my sponsor, he's the wise man. That's why I listened to him so much. But he would always tell me, Max, that's just a dream. Enjoy it. It's a freebie.
That's wonderful. I love that.
I would go, oh my God, this guy's okaying that. I go, yeah, it's in my dreams. That's why. But you see what I'm getting at, right? It's like anything in life. If we want to get better, right? I can go to therapy all I want, and I can come to Alisa and say, hey, I have all these issues I need fixed. But if I walk out of her office and she's giving me stuff to do that'll help me, but I go home and go, I'm not doing it, right? I'm still going to be the same Max that got to her office. Or, it's like getting sober. I can go to treatment. Like we see, unfortunately, like it's a revolving door for some people. But just because you go to treatment and you complete your treatment doesn't mean it's done. Like those old behaviors can come back real quick if you're not being self-aware and paying attention to the things that, the guilt, the shame, the stuff that made you do. Because you said it in the beginning, guilt and shame are two, I believe, in my opinion, emotions that keep addicts stuck in addiction, right? Because
Absolutely.
you can take your drug, you can have your drink, and you could feel great, and then you come to, or like I say, you come to, and now those feelings of guilt and shame come back, and it's horrible. And the only thing you know how to do to get rid of it is do some more, right? And so there's tricks to learning not to do that anymore, whether it's 12 steps or mindfulness or going to treatment, doing EMDR, figuring out things that help. But don't be afraid, right? The biggest thing I believe is asking for help is so courageous, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to start, and then from self-awareness, I always look at this like three stages back to back kind of thing. So first it's self-awareness, to become more aware of I have a problem, because of this is happening, to identifying how this problem is affecting my life. The second one, it's a tricky one. It's willingness, right? It's making a decision to say, you know what, I want to do something about it. I want to change it, because not a lot of people want to change what they have. Sometimes they think justified for acting the way they do, right? And that's fine. Everybody is entitled to their opinion of themselves and others and how to behave in the world. We're all free people, right? But again, don't be surprised if people will be turning their backs on you if you don't change in a way. So that's the
Right.
willingness, right? And then the third one is being ready to change. And that's when the beast is coming into the room, because then we have to take the steps. And just like you said, it's not, I know people can rely on medications to get that fixed. And like, well, I'm taking this medication, I'm fine. Medication is helping you to minimize the symptom you're having. It's not changing the way you are, who you are, what you do. It's not changing none of that. It's just making your distress a little less. But then if you're off of it, it's going to be going the same way. And then you still have those reactions or behaviors that you don't want to have. And that's creating the problem in your life, right? So it's going to be dedication to this process, whether it's medication can be a great supplement, but it's not something to stay on for a long time. It was not intended to be that, only in very few cases, right? When we talk about
Right.
schizophrenia or other things. But so with this readiness, and the sessions can be one thing. Okay, epiphany can happen during the session, let's say, right? Per se that happened. But then what you do between the sessions, that's going to create the long lasting change. And all those things, like what you said about that, it's a never ending process. And I feel like people forget that. And I always have people sitting there, well, it's like I worked on that. I've healed that part of me. I'm done. The moment I say I'm done with my healing of this one tendency, one behavior, one pattern, while
Yeah.
we're in these bodies, we're going to have our shadow. Look, come to any type of light source and see your shadow in the back. You're in this body, this is your shadow. That's all of our tendencies right there. The moment I say this part is healed, it's going to start affecting me without me knowing it's affecting me, because I think it's gone now. And your mind is making it clear. This pattern is no longer a problem. It's not in my life anymore. Our tendencies, our parts of ourselves we want to change or work on, they will always be a part of our shadow. It's always there. So the only way is to continuously and consciously every single day scan, how was your day? What did you do? Was there something that you didn't like how you behaved? Was there something you thought that was not nice? Was there a judgment you did towards someone when it was unnecessary? Were you rude to someone today? There's always a reason why. And so I feel like the more we learn and change within ourselves, the more things we have to change. Every single day, I'm coming into the shower before I'm going to bed, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to address this, and I have to work on that, and I have to really pay attention to this. And I'm like, is this ever going to end? In the beginning, it was a very torturous procedure because I was like, oh my God, nothing, like I feel like it's changing, but it's nothing is changing, because there's
Right.
always things to work on, because there's every single day, like we spoke about in the beginning, there's always those things that are going to go wrong. There's always those people that will not treat us right. But guess what? If we look at that as a blessing, that these people that are triggering us, these situations that are triggering us, they're showing us that we haven't mastered ourselves yet. And so this is not a misfortune, it's an opportunity to continue to grow and to pay attention to those triggers that we have and how we can work on that to maybe make it milder or maybe get stronger in navigating that, right? Just like in recovery too, the longer you go, it's not like the trigger may not affect you in that way anymore. You get stronger navigating that trigger too. So you
Right.
know that whatever you're thinking right now in the beginning can be, oh my God, I don't know if I can pass by this place and not stop there and get something, right? But then you'll be walking like, and 5 minutes later, it's already out of your mind, because your new system is already in place and you know who you are. And that's new person, even though it may be triggered slightly, is not going to act on it, because we established a lot of new neural connections and a lot of new physiological connections too, to know that we are Alisa 2.0, Max 2.0 or 3.0, right? Wherever we are at that station, we're constantly updating. We're becoming that better version if we let ourselves, because we have to allow ourselves that change and allow the time and effort to pay attention every single day to our tendencies, our behaviors, and always striving to be better.
Wow. See, I hope you heard that, everybody. Right. This is what I've been talking about forever. And this is what the podcast is about, right? If you want true resilience in life, it's not about fixing something and then going, I'm done. right? Like all the greats, like Alisa here, great, right? Like they all say the same thing. And what I'm hearing is that we're always a work in progress and always strive to be better than you were yesterday, right? Because you're right. I've been sober for almost 22 years, right? But I did that work and let me rephrase that. I do the work religiously every day so that nothing will trigger me to go back. Not a death in the family, not loss of loved ones. I mean, and I've shared with you before, like some serious traumas happen in my life where I've had people go, Max, you should go, you could use, and everybody would understand. And I'm like, no, that's not how this guy worked, because then I'm not here with my family, and I can't support my loved ones in helping, take care of the people that need to be taken care of. And now I'm a grandfather. So it's like, no, that's not an option. But do I have my moments where I think about it? Yeah. I mean, but they're fleeting thoughts now. Right. And like I said, this is not a program. This is not a podcast about 12 steps or anything, but there's something to those 12 steps. There's part of what Alisa said where I do it every night. It's my written 10 steps. So, I go through my day. Where was I hurtful? What did I do wrong? But at the same time, so that I don't dwell on all the negative, I also tell myself or remember, where was I helpful? Where did I do good? Right. It's a checks and balances, right? And then not just recovering alcoholics and that, but anybody, like you can't all dwell on I was so horrible on here, and then not focus on where you did good, because we got to have balance. And I think when I learned that, right after my last relapse, and I said I would work the steps as thoroughly and honest and understand what they mean, because my sponsor said one thing to me that made sense. He said, these are not steps that are going to cure. You're not going to resolve every issue in your life that you've ever had. There's just too many. It's not going to happen. But there are steps that will help you live with unresolved issues so that you can live a healthy life and not dwell on those things. Because you've worked with, us addicts can dwell on the negative so bad, like morbidly at times, like, oh my God, my life sucks and nothing's going good. Right. Where I have to tell clients like you, I'm sure they're like, dude, you got a roof over your head. You got sleep last night, right? You're in a nice, healthy, safe place. Like, let's start thinking about the good so we can because those are the negative thoughts that keep those, that self-doubt, the worry, all that keep us stuck, I think. Right.
Absolutely. And I feel like you just nailed it too. And it's been actually studies conducted, and I think we spoke about it last time too, the gratitude journal, right? Yeah. But not in a way of, and we can also, a lot of people can skip that and to do it the right way, right? Because I can say, okay, I'm grateful for air, I'm grateful for roof, I'm grateful for that. And it means absolutely nothing. So the idea is to really, it's a more meditative and mindful process to feel grateful, because feeling grateful and just saying what I'm grateful for can be two different things. Anytime, just like, again, when we're talking about trauma or anything negative, we feel it in our body. I'm not just, I'm having a trauma right now, right? And having no reaction to it. It's not working. You feel trauma, you are acting in that traumatic state, right? And that exaggerated state. The same has to do with the gratitude. We have to feel that. And one of the things that a lot of people, I have some clients who struggle with that, they go, well, it's becoming repetitive. I'm like, well, then you're not putting an effort into it. Like, do this. Come home tonight, and I want you to put a blindfold over your eyes and function until the time when you have to go to bed. Just function without your eyes. Just imagine your life without eyesight. Go for that and see how grateful you are afterwards to have your eyes. Because we take so many things for granted and we're never grateful enough. And I feel like even identifying, it's like, oh my God, right now nothing hurts or nothing is in pain, or like you've said, like I'm healthy. And I feel like the one thing, and it's great when we have cold or flu, because when we're down in our bed, the only thing, we don't think about money, we don't think about a new car, we don't think about nothing else but oh my God, I want to feel normal again, I want to feel good again.
Right.
So our health has to be every single night, it has to be a feeling of, thank God I have all of parts of my body, we're such an intricate system, right? We have so many types, so many little pieces of ourselves. And then when we say, well, I don't have faith, I don't trust. Well, are you trusting you're going to have your next breath right now? You're not gasping for air. Or when you're drinking water, you don't think how it's going to be digested, right? Your body has the consciousness and it's working perfectly. So why not give it some gratitude? And now we know how thoughts and what we say affects not only our physiology, is another thing, plants. There is rice experiment when people talk to rice and they talk badly, they talk good, they ignore it, and rice is getting spoiled in different ways. You know, everything is affected by what we say and how we feel. So imagine giving your body this love and saying, thank you for giving me this vibrant health right now. And all of these parts inside of myself, just like you are right now, I am, we're having this opportunity to sit here and talk because everything is working beautifully. Thank God, because if one thing malfunctions right now, we're not going to be sitting here. I'll be in a hospital, right? So this is a blessing. This is a privilege. This is a great privilege to be here right now and being able to have this beautiful conversation, right? So I feel like if we take that, if we really sit with that, because I know our mind can be, like we spoke about, the powerful mind can be so triggered into what we want and seeing, you know, get influenced very easily by a lot of different people, places, things. It's one thing, society, social media, what success is, politics, religion. There's going to be so many different things, and pointing fingers and what we think is right and fighting for that. Great. But again, it's taking away from actually what's important and what we already have. And I feel like this is a wonderful, like you mentioned, right? So wonderful to have this practice of gratitude at night to also really pay respect and feel it fully of how fortunate we are. And when we are fortunate, we're also lucky, we're blessed. We can't be anxious. I cannot be thinking about the future when I have so much right now. It's a blessing. So I feel like practicing this presence and putting in the work, really sitting with yourself, not just skipping through it, but really giving yourself. And that's the skills. Being grateful, it's a freaking skill. And we have to practice that daily in order to make that really powerful. Because we sit there and think about all the things happened in the past, they feel really bad about ourselves and how, you know, we're in this big misery right now and how hopeless it all is. Of course, you're living in your past. You're reaching into that bag, pull out whatever you've had in there, in the back over there, right? Smear it all over yourself and think why it smells so bad, right? That's Wayne Dyer's was metaphor. It was a beautiful metaphor. I was like, for real, that's what we do. And then we're surprised why it smells right now. Well, because that's where we're reaching backwards. So I feel like trying to be present and not in the future, because that's going to be anxiety provoking, because you want all of those things you don't yet have, or those things that you have to, you know, go and do. And it's not a pleasant experience in your head already. And you don't even know how it's going to turn out to be. So being present and using this time to practice and to get more of a self-mastery over your own habits. It's all habits. We're creatures of habits. So I feel like this is a great opportunity to do that.
Absolutely, right? Because gratitude is a muscle, right? My sponsor would tell me the same. It's funny that you say that, right? Because I'd walk in all happy. Yeah, I'm grateful for this and that. And he'd go, okay, Max. He goes, show me that you're grateful. Like, show me things you're doing to that. And I would go, you just burst my bubble. Thanks a lot, buddy. But I get it, right? Because as the more I practice it, and science, like if you're listening, audience, pay attention, because you can go do your research, right? Neuroscience says if the first thing you do when you wake up is write down things you're grateful for, right? I always keep it simple for my clients. 3 things. Just start with 3. And then the last thing before you close your eyes, before you go to bed, is write 3 new things you're grateful for. Your brain will actually build new neural pathways so that you see yourself and the world in a much positive and a more positive way, right? And it's true. And I've even seen like under the microscope where someone's being grateful, the neural pathways actually building. You know, they showed that in science class, and I'm like, okay, and it all boils down to what you're saying is the self. And like we could have you come back, you and I'm sure we could have a whole hour on mindfulness, which I think is very awesome, wonderful, to help us live, like you said, in the moment, be aware not only of what's going on in our minds, but in our bodies. And that way we show up more present for the ones around us, because we, you know, and there we could probably talk about an hour of breath work and how that can help, right? Because you're like me, it sounds like I'm over medication. right? Like I even suffer or struggle, I should say, with taking an ibuprofen if I'm in pain. Like me, I'm just going to say, okay, I'm grateful for this pain because there's some lesson I got to learn. And my wife was like, there's something wrong with you, but just take an ibuprofen, right? Times I need to take an ibuprofen, but
Mhm.
you get what I'm saying? Like I have been off my depression medications for 5 years now, and I feel better now than I ever have. Right. I still have the aches and pains of my body. I'm getting older. I just turned 57 this month. Right. So I have a bad shoulder, bad ankle, bad back, and all. But I'm still, when I look around at me, at some of the people I see around me, like if I go out in the community, I'm like, I'm still in better shape than half the people I see. Right. Because I have taken up advice like Alisa's given and worked on myself and be more aware. Right. So with that, like, for instance, when I work out, I know what I can't do and what I can do. And I'm not going to push the things I can't do because that's going to cause an injury. Right. But if I focus on the things I can do, I'm going to have a great workout. I'm going to feel good. Right. And trust me, that stubbornness still comes in, right? Where I can do it just one more time. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have did that body part because my shoulder hurts. But you get what I'm saying. But that's what I think she's talking about. Everybody is that self-awareness of, I mean, where I believe if we learn to tap in, like I call it God, right? Everybody has it inside them, the universe, whatever you want to call it. We learn how to tap into that. We don't. Then things become possible. Nothing's impossible. And Alicia shared her story of going through her traumas when she got here to the United States, and that, and look what she's doing now. She's helping others. And if all of you guys all know, my audience, if you've been with me for a while now, you know that I love people that come on, gone through their challenges. I like to call them challenges and struggles instead of problems, and how they've overcome them and shown how their resilience, and now they're showing up in the world in such a better place and helping others do the same. And that to me, is priceless. And if I can bring someone on the podcast like Alisa and have her share what she does and share her story, it makes my day. And because I was not having a good day this morning, like, the little head, the little devil on the shoulders, like, just call Alisa, so we're going to reschedule it for another day. And I'm like, nah, I can't do that. But if you get what I'm saying, everybody, we're all going to have bad moments, like she said. We're all going to go through struggles. We're all going to go through challenges, but it's how we face them and look at things, and especially ourselves, right? Because there was a point in my life where I didn't even like looking in the mirror, period. Like, there was no way you were going to get me to do it. But now today, right, like knowing people like Alisa and doing therapy and getting, doing things better and learning how to improve. Now I can actually smile at the guy that I see in the mirror. And that's what I want for all of you, men, women, and children, right? It's just to be able to look in the mirror and smile back at that person who's looking at you. Because to me, this is just my humble opinion, that's when you have arrived. Because I know we've all gone through moments where we're like Alisa said, like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. Then I don't even want to go in the bathroom to check because I'm going to see all these things I got to change, right? But if we can just be present with ourselves, which in turns helps us be present with the ones that we love or that we're friends, you know what I mean? And that's what I think makes the world a better place, because there's so much distraction out there. And when we can focus on what's really important, it's, for us to have healthy minds and bodies. And all you got to do is 1% better than you did the day before. And trust me, if you do that at the beginning of the year, you heard me say this many times before, like at the end, you'll look back and go, wow, I'm 365% better than I was last year. And what a boost, right? I don't want to say an ego boost, but what a mental boost or a motivation to keep going. But if you've been listening to Alisa, that's, don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help. Be vulnerable, right? That was one thing that was like a foreign language to me when my sponsor said that. It was like, I don't know if you remember the Peanuts cartoon, at least, but every time, so the Peanuts cartoon, right, where all the kids, so anytime a teacher talked, all the kids would hear was, like, you couldn't understand, right? So that's what, like, he said, be vulnerable, and all I heard was, I didn't understand. You can't, I don't know what that means. But, And look what happens. I get to have amazing guests like Alisa here. So now I'm going to get into some of the questions I love to ask, as you know. So
Mhm.
I wrote my book called Fearless Happiness, same as the podcast. So we're going to start with fearless, Alisa. What does fearless mean to you today? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
I would say trusting. And I feel like when you've mentioned about tapping into the God or universe, right? We're not getting wet from the word water. It's the essence, it's the substance of the water. The same as with our spirit. Well, it doesn't matter what we call it, we're all made of the same thing internally, even though the bodies are very different. So I feel like if we learn to trust the process and knowing that no matter what's coming for me today or tomorrow, I know it's here for my highest good and I'm going to be safe, even though it may feel unsafe for my body. But I know this experience is here for me to grow and learn from and to become a better person. I feel like if we have that trust and certainty in our own source, because I go on my knees every single day, every single night, rather. I'm on my knees and I'm connecting because that's how I like to connect with my source and humble myself. And also, it keeps that ego in check, but at the same time, it boosts self-love because if you're aligning with that, you will feel that love from your source. It's ultimately, it's where you come to. So for me, fearless meaning, yeah, trusting the process, trusting the experience, not being scared because it's here for my highest good. I just don't see the big picture yet, but I know it's going to be there because I trust something that's guiding me and that's walking this path with me.
Right. I love that. Right. Because you said it earlier too. I have one thing that whatever we focus on grows, whether it's
Yeah.
negative. If it's negative, that's going to grow. If it's positive,
Mhm.
it's something that's going to help me, then that grows. So I'm like you. I do my prayers in the morning on my, it's my quiet time. Everybody's sleeping. I get to be selfish and it's me and God right then and there and nobody else. And, you guys leave me alone. But there's something to that, right? I think it strengthens us in a way sometimes we don't even understand. Like, that's my opinion. Like, because sometimes I go through something, I'm like, where'd that come from? Oh, that's right. I know where it came from. Right.
Yeah, it's not because it's not a knowledge, it's a knowing. Once you get, I know a lot of people who can cite a Bible, but they never experience God. And I know people who never even thought they're spiritual and they're doing things pure conditional love. So I feel like we have a lot of terms mixed up. And I feel like it's not about the knowledge of yeah, knowledge is absolutely important. It's not what I mean. But when it comes to spirituality or faith or that trust, it has to be a knowing. And I don't care if people don't understand, it's fine. That's not my job to convince them otherwise. If they're not there, that's fine. I know my truth and it's helping me to move forward with grace and gratitude. And I feel like that's an important part of that. And that comes from knowing, from the experience, not questioning. I may not understand it because if I have to explain it, that's going to lose its meaning. But knowing of that, it's within your every single cell and you feel it and you know it and you don't have to prove it to anybody.
Right. And there's a big nugget right there, because that's how you overcome fear, is just that knowing, and you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So
Mhm.
happiness, as you know, we did this before, but I put a Y in it. What does happiness mean to you, Alisa, and how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
I think to me, it's progress. It's changing, right? Becoming, always becoming. I feel like if we always strive to be better and finding new ways, and it doesn't have to be something about our own flaws of character, but maybe exploring new activity, maybe trying new food, maybe trying new skill, maybe doing new art project, maybe exploring new ways in which I can experience life in a different way. So I feel like if I'm continuously growing in one way or another, it's going to ultimately create a better space, mental space, better, kind of feelings, better mood, because we're always becoming regardless. And if we help this process, I feel like we're going to be happy.
I love it. Love it. Well, I knew it would be. This has been a great time. So glad you're here. I appreciate you so much. And I've learned again even more this time. But if people want to get a hold of you, Alisa, they want to work with you, of course, how do they get a hold of you?
I have social media sites and the Instagram is Alisa_art, Alisa Gracheva, my first name, last name, and in Google, you'll find a lot of different sources. I work for a group private practice. I have my own little website. It's called www.sins.life and Psychology Today profile too. So I have multiple ways and always welcome everybody. If anybody just want a quick consultation, I'll be there. So yes.
I love it. You heard that. Don't
Mhm.
Forget it, everybody. Well, like I said, it's been a great time. And of course, you know that you're not off the hook just yet. I get to ask you my favorite question. I ask of all my guests, and it goes like this. What is the one piece of advice, Alisa, that you could give my audience that will help them grow as human beings and become better people?
Get to know yourself. Be open to knowing who you are and what makes you tick, what makes you happy, what any other aspects of your life, what gives you passion, what inspires you, right? Because I feel like it's always good to know the bad stuff and the good stuff about ourselves, but ultimately I don't think we know ourselves enough, and we're so much more than what we think. And there's this quote in I forgot who said it, but it's in the book from Jay Shetty, and he says, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. Our perception of ourselves is so messed up that we think that what they think of me is correct. And it's in reality, we have to learn who we are so that we're unstoppable and unshakable. And if I know all of my flaws and all of my strengths, I can navigate both with grace. So I feel like if we get to know ourselves and we dedicate time to that, and it means sitting with yourself, it's being with your feelings, being open, being, kind of receptive to what realizations am I receiving. And I feel like that can give create a lot of movement, a lot of progress in our development.
Absolutely. Wow, it's been a great time, like I said, and I learned again so much from you. Thank you so much for being here, Alisa. And you heard her, everybody. If Alisa made you think, if she taught you something, if she made you smile, and my famous, if she made you go, I like that. Please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast. And again, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.